You want to hear some face-melting hot takes
Oh boy.
for fantasy football this year? Well, you've come to the right place.
That's right.
We are going to give you 6 hot takes, 3 each. Some of them you're going to shake your head. You're going to say, what the hell are these guys talking about? But
that's the point.
I hope that, I mean, these are hot takes. They shouldn't be popular, right? These are bold. And I hope that we can provide, information to back up why we think these things can happen.
That's right.
Firstly, why don't you comment down below a bold take of yours?
Come on, baby.
And as we're going through them, make sure you let us finish the take first, but then comment and say, yeah, I can see that, or nah, you're crazy.
You're
okay?
crazy. And that's okay.
So either way is okay. I'm going to give you my first hot take, and that is that T. Higgins finishes as a top 10 wide receiver. Now, this one is probably on the scale take. If imagine we're doing, what's that YouTube?
Panic meter? I don't
No,
know.
so for example, when they eat the hot wings, Scoville.
The Scoville.
So this is bottom 3 hot sauce Scoville out of the 10 that we're about to do, okay?
Bottom 3. Love it.
But let's talk about this. T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. I don't think they were all that far apart in major fantasy categories last year.
Right.
And I'd like to, I guess, help people see my perspective where I keep telling people that T. Higgins is actually not that far off from Jamar Chase, okay? Mm-hmm. Keep in mind, I'm about to throw some analytics and some numbers your way, but keep in mind that T. Higgins missed 3 games last year, so just keep that in mind as I read these, okay? Jamar Chase versus T. Higgins, okay? Mm-hmm. Well, let's look at targets per game. Who had more targets per game? I mean, because really opportunity is everything in fantasy for running backs, 100%. For wide receivers. T. Higgins had more targets per game at 7.8.
Okay, that's
How about games over 25 points? Jamar Chase with 4 versus 2. Okay. However, keep in mind, again, T. Higgins did miss 3 games. Right. How about games under 13 points? Well, Jamar Chase 12, T. Higgins 9. Again, the sword goes both ways. T. Higgins missed games. How about total red zone targets? Again, Jamar Chase should have an advantage here because he played 3 more games. Well, T. Higgins had 1 more red zone target last year. And how about expected points per game brought to you by Player Profiler? Actually, T. Higgins had more expected points per game than Jamar Chase. And that is a double-edged sword, right? Because technically Jamar did more with less. But again, 2 wide receivers who are very good on a very good offense, 2 different play styles who complement each other really, really well. However, what I am trying to convey is not that Jamar Chase is bad or that you shouldn't draft him this year. It's that there is not as big of a gap between these players that you might believe so. Right. And secondly, let's talk about how defenses will approach these 2 wide receivers. Who is going to be the one that they game plan around? It will be Jamar Chase. And you already saw that all offseason, or all in the playoffs last year. Think about it. But let's go back and revisit the Super Bowl where the Rams were doing everything they could to shut down Jamar Chase. Now, at moments, he did beat Jalen Ramsey, but you saw T. Higgins taking advantage of the weak coverage that was on him, put up 2 touchdowns in that game. Now we have an entire year of film of Jamar Chase. Expect defenses, that's the dude. That's a top 5 weapon in the NFL. That is who you want to stop on a weekly basis, which is going to allow T. Higgins on cornerback 2s and because of game plans to really thrive. So go ahead and book. Again, Joe Burrow takes another step. This offensive line finally isn't going to let him die every 3 seconds. Yeah. T. Higgins takes the next step. He will be a top 10 fantasy wide receiver. Go ahead and book it.
Book it. Get your book out. Write it down in permanent pencil, pen, whatever you have to do. Permanent pencil.
That's a pen.
My first hot take. Wow, it's a hot one. Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy will both finish as a top 8 wide receiver. So that means they both will finish in the top 8. Okay, so before I actually get into the nitty-gritty, I'm just going to give you some history, okay? I just want to remind you who these guys played with as quarterbacks for their whole career, right? Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. Drew Lock, Joe Flacco, Jeff Driscoll, Brett Rippon, Kendall Hilton, by the way, not even a quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater, and Brandon Allen. Let me tell you who's now there, the savior, the man, the myth, the legend, the guy that's coming in with all the swag. The person that we're believing in, the Broncos country himself, Russell Wilson, Mr. Unlimited. Let's ride. Broncos country, let's ride.
Let's ride.
We all know who he is, Russell Wilson. He is the guy. He is the reason both of these guys will have a very successful 2022 season. Yeah. And it's happened before. this has happened before, oddly enough. In 2020, DK Metcalf finished as a wide receiver 7. Tyler Lockett finished as a wide receiver 8. They were both tied for 6th amongst wide receivers in touchdowns as well. They both had 10 touchdowns. That is crazy for both of these guys to both finish, in my opinion, to finish as a top 10 wide receivers, top 8 wide receivers, and both have double-digit touchdowns. That means Russ was cooking, and they were both eating. I'm actually really excited. And if you're saying, you know what, this is a little bit too bold for me, maybe 12 or 15, I'm there with you, brother. Let me also remind you, in the last 7 years, he's consistently produced a top 15 wide receiver since, like I said, the last 7 years. Okay, I don't want to go through this whole list, but 2015 to 2017, Doug Baldwin was wide receiver 10, 8, and 13. Tyler Lockett, wide receiver 16 in 2018, 2019, et cetera, et cetera. You get what I'm saying. These guys were both Doug Baldwin, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. Doesn't really matter who it was. He was producing a top at least 15 fantasy wide receiver. And this is why I'm saying both these guys can both finish as a wide receiver or top wide receiver 8. Let me also remind you the division they are both in, the AFC West. This is no walk in the park. You have the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Andy Reid, loaded. Raiders, Derek Carr, Adams, Waller, JJ. We all know who's there. Then you have the Chargers with Herbie, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. This is not an easy division. I can guarantee you, I'm pretty sure this is a guaranteed 8 games in their schedule that has confirmed shootouts. There's confirmed games that they have to score, okay? And that's not even including, which I didn't really go through the schedule, but I'm going to name some other teams that I just saw as I quickly glanced. 49ers, Colts, Ravens, Cardinals, they also play. You can do the math. You can really add up how many games you believe this team or the Broncos are going to be in a shootout, which kind of like Zach, why not book it? Lock it in. Lock in both the Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton being a top 8 wide receiver. I like it. I hope you love it. I'm all in. Jerry Judy's my guy to the moon. Broncos country. Let's ride.
Let's ride. All right. That is bold. That is bold right there. Let me get bold as well. This is one of my hotter takes. Okay.
Here we go.
Trey Lance. I like Trey Lance. Trey Lance is going to lead quarterbacks in rushing touchdowns.
Jeez.
Go ahead and book it. Now, there's some important context here because there's going to be a lot of people out there who are already annoyed that I said that, okay? Understandable. Now, let's get through that together. The important context is to note that the 49ers did not draft Trey Lance to operate the offense the same way that Jimmy G has done, okay?
Right.
Otherwise, you don't send multiple picks and you don't get rid of Jimmy G. So this offense will not be the same. And it's important, if you're sitting there and you don't think that this is a possibility, maybe you can't envision what this offense is going to look like with Trey Lance instead of Jimmy G. And if you are that type of person, I understand why you think that this is a huge leap. Obviously, it's a bold take. I understand that. So I'm coming out on a limb here. But again, if you are picturing this 49ers offense like it was last year with Jimmy G, you're looking at this offense entirely wrong. A lot of people who I say Trey Lance, they're not in on Trey Lance like I am. They just haven't seen it, and that's their problem. It's just that they haven't seen it, okay? Let's look at Trey Lance's college rushing profile, and I'm going to break down some stuff for you, so stay with me. Okay. 2020 season, played 1 game due to the COVID situation, so let's throw that out the window. Let's look at 2019, the last full season for him. He rushed for 1,100 yards and had 14 touchdowns on the ground. Yes, I know it wasn't the exact college that you wanted him to go to, but he did what he could where he was. Let's talk about some of today's NFL quarterbacks who have absolutely dominated rushing touchdowns in the league. And let's look at what they did in college, all right? Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray. These have been the top dogs when it comes to rushing touchdowns for quarterbacks, okay? Jalen Hurts, his last college season, he ran the ball on 40% of his attempts. What I'm doing right now is I'm combining pass attempts and rushing attempts. How many times did they run? How many times did they pass? Jalen Hurts, 40% of his attempts, all right? He ended up his last season just under 1,300 rush yards and 20 rushing touchdowns. Lamar Jackson, okay? Maybe the rushing king in fantasy, right?
For sure.
His last college season, he ran the ball 35% of his attempts. He finished with 1,600 rushing yards, 18 touchdowns. Kyler Murray, his last college season, he ran the ball on 27% of his attempts. 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns on the ground. Now let's look at Trey Lance. Last college season, he ran the ball on 37% of his attempts. The only person on that list that I just gave you that is higher is Jalen Hurts, okay? Lamar, not higher. Kyler Murray, not higher. And so if we look at a college profile, we're talking about a quarterback who was drafted 3rd overall, and that's what the 49ers were aware of they were drafting, who tends to run the ball a lot. This will not be the same offense. Trey Lance is going to be rushing a lot in this offense, all right? His profile puts him right in that category to lead the NFL in rushing touchdowns amongst quarterbacks. In his limited time as a starter or when he came in for Jimmy G last year, you saw him, don't pretend like you didn't, a lot of rushing attempts at the goal line. If I have Elijah Mitchell, I am worried, okay?
He's worried.
I think that we could see Elijah Mitchell fall into this category like we've seen with Devin Singletary, some of the Ravens running backs. Kyler before James Conner last year, where the quarterback just keeps taking all the rushing touchdowns. That is a very realistic possibility in my opinion, okay? And last thing I'll say is let's review his limited game last year a little bit more. In his 2 starts, okay, he averaged 12 rushing attempts in those 2 starts. That is the same amount of rushing attempts Lamar Jackson had in 2019 when he finished as the quarterback 1, all right? Now, 12 rush attempts per game. Can he hit that? I think it's possible, but let's be more realistic here. Maybe 8 to 10 rushing attempts per game. Right. That massively raises Trey Lance's ceiling, and a lot of those attempts can come at the goal line. You no longer have Jimmy G. You now have Trey Lance. You have one of those elite rushing quarterbacks who, on the goal line, you can do whatever you want. And by the way, when the pass doesn't work out, he can rush for a touchdown. So this is a quarterback, in my opinion, who is one of like 3 or 4 quarterbacks who legitimately has a chance to lead the NFL in rushing touchdowns amongst quarterbacks. So lock it in. Trey Lance leads
impermanent pencil
the NFL.
Trey Lance
in rushing touchdowns amongst quarterbacks. Lock it in, baby. Book it.
I love it. My second hot take here is Cole Kmet will out-target the man himself, Kyle Pitts, and finish as a top 8 tight end. I know. It's bold. I know. It's Kyle Pitts. Let's take a nice little stroll. Cole Kmet is due for a massive uptick in productions in this year. I believe he is going to be and will be the number 2 option there for Justin Fields. If you watch the preseason game, we saw exactly how they're going to be using Cole Kmet. Okay, it's a very small dose. It is preseason. You try to take it with a grain of salt. But, I mean, even before the preseason, I have to say I was really excited for Cole Kmet. We saw what he did this past year. Wasn't crazy, but you saw the glimpses of hope, especially with Justin Fields, and I'm a Justin Fields believer. This past year, the Bears got rid of their big body wide receiver, Allen Robinson, and literally only brought in Velus Jones Jr., a 25-year-old rookie. By the way, who I really like, okay? I really like him. And they also brought in N'Keal Harry, who is just injury-prone and clearly a bust, and it's not going to work out. So they need a big body guy, somebody that can get contested catches, something that's going to happen. We know this offensive line is terrible, so Justin Fields is going to be scrambling. Hopefully Cole Kmet can win it on the second level, okay? Now, this is where I'm hoping and believing the consistency with Justin Fields on the field can bring a fantastic connection with Cole Kmet, all right? Cole Kmet in 2020, this past year, or 2021, averaged 7.1 points per game, averaged 6.6 targets per game, and was on the field for 84% of the total team's offense, okay? There is no doubt in my mind that he can average at least 1 more target per game, 7.5 per game, and potentially out-target Kyle Pitts. That is a lot of targets for a tight end, guaranteed, but this is a bold take. This is why we are here, all right? Now we're going, how can he really out-target Kyle Pitts? What is that thought process? When you really break down Kyle Pitts, he averaged 6.4, which is Cole Kmet, averaged 6.4 targets per game last year, and Cole Kmet averaged 6.6. Essentially the same thing. Nothing really different. Pitt's total targets in 2021 was 110 targets. Cole Kmet was 93 targets in 21. That's only 17 less. That's 1 target per game. 1 target. Doesn't seem like a lot. It seems like a lot, but in reality, if you really break it up, it's only 1 target. If Justin Fields can toss it to Cole Kmet just 1 more time per game, it can definitely get there, right? Another thing is this offense on both sides of the ball when I say both sides of the ball, I mean the Falcons and the Bears are completely different. They just invested in Drake London. They get Drake London, and we're all expecting big targets, big shares from Drake London to come in. I do believe Kyle Pitts will be a top 3 tight end, top 4 tight end, but not in targets. He'll probably get the touchdowns. He'll be more consistent in touchdowns, where Cole Kmet is going to get the touchdowns, or is going to get the targets, maybe not the touchdowns, and out-target Kyle Pitts. Not finish as a top 3, but finish at least as a top 8 tight end. I really like it. I think Cole Kmet is going to be a sneaky ball hog. Book it in pencil. Book it in permanent pencil. Come on.
I mean,
it's bold, but in reality, once again, if you look at it, it's not that big of a gap in targets. But the expectation, we all expect Kyle Pitts to take a massive leap. Don't get me wrong. Just don't hear what I'm not saying. I believe in Kyle Pitts, but I also believe in Cole Kmet, and I do believe their target shares is actually significantly closer than what we truly think. Okay. So take it in. Cole Kmet will out-target Kyle Pitts and finish as a top 8 tight end.
All right, that is hot. Let's see. Okay. Fair enough. All right, my last hot take: Christian Kirk finishes top 12 in targets. Okay. Top 12 in targets amongst wide receivers, and he finishes top 24 overall amongst wide receivers. Again, we do all of our rankings in PPR, so keep that in mind as we're talking. Christian Kirk is going to get 8 targets per game. Okay? He's going to get heavily targeted per game in this Jags offense. 8 targets per game for Christian Kirk. It's going to happen, okay? Last year, the Jags threw the ball a lot because the Jags are terrible, all right? The Jags are still terrible.
I don't know if you know, they're bad.
They are still terrible. If you look at game script, they were last in the NFL, which means they were constantly throwing the ball, trying to come back in games. You know what sucked last year when they were down in all those games? Who the hell were they throwing the ball to?
Gosh, that's so annoying.
The most talented player on their team, outside of Trevor, Travis Etienne, wasn't even there. James Robinson was, but Travis Etienne wasn't there. Mm-hmm. You look at the wide receiver room, we're trying to make Jamal Agnew a top 24 wide receiver last year. Yeah. And he breaks his hip, right? I mean, look at their target shares per game last year. Marvin Jones, 7. Laviska, 6. Laquan Treadwell, 4.2. Jamal Agnew, 4. Can we be honest for a second? Of any of those wide receivers, who the hell is a wide receiver 2 on any NFL team right now? Just a wide receiver 2.
Just a wide receiver 2.
Anyone? Any one of those? Laviska is a kick returner. Laquan Treadwell has been failed on like 3 or 4 teams. Jamal Agnew has never been good until last year. Like he showed some signs. And Marvin Jones is almost 45 years old, like Tom Brady, and retired, right? Yeah. Obviously, that's a joke. But think about that for 1 second. You have an incredible game script for fantasy purposes for a wide receiver. Last year, Trevor Lawrence was 7th in pass attempts amongst quarterbacks. The Jags, 8th in pace of play. Friendly reminder, the worst game script in the NFL, which led to a lot of pass attempts. They're still going to be a bad team defensively, even though let's see if the first overall pick is going to help them or not. Mm-hmm. But outside of Travis Etienne, Christian Kirk is the most talented player on this team, the most talented weapon on this team outside of Etienne. You combine his talent compared to that wide receiver core, as well as the money he got in free agency, my guy is going to eat targets all day long. Again, like I said, 8 targets per game for Christian Kirk. Tell me who in that wide receiver core they are going to prioritize over Christian Kirk. I know Zay Jones is there, but Christian Kirk, you saw it for the first time, didn't you, in the preseason game? You finally saw what I've been trying to tell you.
You saw it.
5 receptions, not even a full half. 5 receptions, not even a full half against a starting defense in the Steelers, okay? So 7.5 is obviously safer. I'm being quite bold here with 8. 8 targets per game on a 17-game season puts him at 136, which if we look at last year, that would put him in the top 12 amongst wide receivers in targets. So go ahead and book it. Top 12 in targets, a top 24 finish for Christian Kirk. He did it last year. It was off of efficiency. This year, it's off of volume. Okay. Book it, Christian Kirk. Top 12 in targets, top 24 finish amongst wide receivers.
I like it. Christian Kirk. Some sneaky Christian Kirk. We'll see what happens with Trevor Lawrence here. My last and final hot take for you guys as the season fastly approaching. Alec Pierce will finish with more touchdowns than Michael Pittman and will finish as a top 24 wide receiver. And this is bold because this is a rookie.
I mean, this is like one of my favorite dudes last year.
Yeah, and this is a rookie. We love Michael Pittman. I love Michael Pittman. Like I said, he was the guy that we both love coming out of college. If you don't know who Alec Pierce is, he's a 6'3" wide receiver, 211 coming out of Cincinnati. He was with Desmond Ridder. He was drafted in the second round to the Indianapolis Colts. Probably the strongest hands. One of the things we always said about Alec Pierce, one of the strongest hands in this class. And what do I mean by strong? I mean, when he catches the ball and you have somebody in there trying to knock it down, it ain't coming out. It's not happening because he is going to hold that ball and he goes up there for the contested catches. Low key, probably one of the best contested catches wide receivers in this class.
He is the best contested catch.
Zach is saying he is the best. I'm saying low key.
He is.
Saying I feel like there's maybe one or two. But with Matt Ryan in town, I am a big believer of what's going to happen here in Indy. Are we going to get Matty Ice or Matty Ice? If you don't know what that is, are we going to get the good Matt Ryan or the bad Matt Ryan, okay? Yeah. He's back for revenge as always. He has always produced, at least almost always produced a fantasy-relevant wide receiver with Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones there. Granted, Calvin Ridley was a first-round wide receiver in this draft, but Alec Pierce was a second, like I said, but he is a dog. I am confident that this could happen. Once again, why? Because it's happened before. It's happened before. In 2018, Matt Ryan, in his prime, he's chilling there with Julio Jones. They draft Calvin Ridley. I'm just here to help. Julio Jones, wide receiver 4, finished as a wide receiver 4 in 2018. 8 total touchdowns. Calvin Ridley, wide receiver 22, 10 touchdowns. How many times? I'm pretty sure we can remember. We would rather say, Zach was a big believer. I would rather have Calvin Ridley with the value when you were getting him in the late rounds because he was getting more touchdowns. Anyways, one little note I like to throw out there for the viewers. 2019, Julio Jones, wide receiver, finished wide receiver 3. 6 total touchdowns. Calvin Ridley, wide receiver 27. Not the best, but finished with 7 touchdowns. Alec Pierce with Matt Ryan, Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman, quote unquote, is the Julio Jones to Matt Ryan now, and Alec Pierce is the Calvin Ridley if we really want to put them in. Not saying
like
that
different players, but different you're saying like,
but that's
what could happen.
That's how I'm seeing it focused. So I don't think Michael Pittman is no longer going to have the targets. He's going to get the targets. I don't know if he's going to get the touchdowns. I think Alec Pierce will get more touchdowns and still be. Matt Ryan has produced 2 top 24 wide receivers before. So lock it in. Once again, Alec Pierce is a dog. I am super confident. Finished with more touchdowns than Michael Pittman and a top 24 wide receiver. That is my bold take. Let us know. Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, look, as someone over on our Dynasty channel who everyone was telling me I'm overdrafting Alec Pierce all summer long in rookie drafts. I like this. I mean, I've loved Alec Pierce for a long time.
Going crazy.
People always tell me you're drafting him too high. So I'm on board with you. I like this, but obviously, I'm gonna let that be your take because I love Michael Pittman too, but I love the Alec Pierce love. So guys, I mean, obviously these are bold. So why don't you comment down below? Tell us your bold take. Okay.
Come on.
We told you ours. Obviously, you can not like some of them. That's fine. Comment down below what you like, what you don't like, and your hot take. It's going to be a good year.
Yo, what's good? Thanks for watching. We got a lot more videos.
A lot more.
If you want more videos.
Watch it.
You can also subscribe.
Right now.
If you want to.
You need to.
And lastly, don't forget that you can sign up to support the show and get exclusive content by going to patreon.com/FantasyLand fam.